Okay, hello all. Here we are in lovely Osaka, Japan, as you cannot see by the white wall behind me. I would like to talk about rare record collecting in Japan. Rare and sometimes not so rare, but at least interesting. So I'm going to focus on a few of my Golden Week finds. What is Golden Week, you may ask? It's a spring holiday here in Japan, and it afforded me the chance to go to Shikoku and dig around for some rare records. They're actually quite a bit cheaper in the countryside. So if you go and find a small record shop in the countryside in Japan, you'll most likely net some interesting finds at a lot cheaper prices. So you can wander around and look at the weird cover art and talk to the local dealer, which I always encourage because record collecting is a social hobby. You should find all the people you can who are into the same genres as you, which in my case, as you might have been able to judge by this very loud print on my t-shirt, I'm into psychedelic music, 70s progressive, garage punk, some various 70s and 60s things, and a bit of stuff beyond that as far as time is concerned. So, to avoid blabbering on and on, I'm going to show a few of these records I found. So, basically, in the mainstream frame of things, one of my favorite heavy rock bands is Black Sabbath. So to find Black Sabbath records is pretty easy. You can find fakes, you can find a lot of bootlegs and cheap pressings of the Ozzy era albums, and the Dio ones kind of float around. But one I thought was interesting was the last album with Ozzy, Never Say Die. So here's my copy of Never Say Die that I found. Get it in the frame here a little more without me disappearing. And this is a Japanese pressing on Vertigo Records, which was the original. Let's see if I can get it in frame here. Here's the Vertigo logo. It's a little swirly thing. The Vertigo Swirl, the famous Vertigo Swirl. So this is a Black Sabbath on Vertigo, which is really cool. You get all the neat stuff like the insert, and also you get huge Japanese write-up if you like to read that sort of thing. They offer pretty in-depth stories on whatever band it is that you're concerned with. I remember buying a Caravan album and my Japanese friend reading out the band members' favorite foods, pets, sports teams, all sort of bizarre stuff. And when you're thinking about the Canterbury psychedelic progressive rock band Caravan, it's pretty interesting that anybody asked them what their favorite food or pet is. Also, you get the lyrics translated by Japanese label staff, which, not to slight them in any way, you sometimes get some very, very interesting reinterpretations of the lyrics. I mean, the Sid Barrett records I have from Japan, they have Sid. There's a lyric sheet in a Sid Barrett record, if you can imagine that, and then misinterpreted lyrics. I mean, you could write your own bizarre Sid Barrett song using misinterpreted lyrics from a Japanese sleeve. But anyway, I was seeking a Black Sabbath record with the Vertigo spaceship logo. Here it is, space. And I managed to find one. It's pretty cool. I especially like the song Shockwave on this album. If you look it up on YouTube, Shockwave is awesome. It's got a really good guitar intro and some nice vocals from Ozzy. His last with Black Sabbath at the time. So there you go, Never Say Die. So I found that at a small record shop in Takamatsu, Kagawa, Shikoku, in that order. Uh, yeah, city, prefecture, island. Um, what else? I always enjoy German 70s psychedelic records. This one, it's on the Pills label. Whoops, that's the wrong side. This is mushroom. Pills means mushroom in German. And this with Withuser and Westrup, if I can say it correctly, which I can't, um, is a very odd record. Der Jesus Pills, Musik vom Evangelium. So I think it's a satire on Christian music, and it's a kind of a really weird psychedelic folk rock comedy album. Get these giant blown out mushrooms on the covers. This is what I love about 70s cover art. It just folds out into this monstrosity. Got all these giant mushrooms, totally psychedelic, bizarre. The music is fairly dry. I mean, Pills, I really like on Pills Records, I like Popol Vuh, and my favorite is Holderlin's Traum, Holderlin's Dream, which is an unbelievable German psychedelic folk record that I'll probably get into on another post when I get down to the nitty gritty on some of these albums that I like. I might do some reviews in the future. Um, Another German one that I really wanted for a long time. Um, I saw it in a record shop in Osaka a couple years ago, and the record shop actually went out of business, which was horrible. This is the Breakfast record anyway. Very odd cover and some funny mod-ish throwback looking guys on it, but I'll explain the record in a second after I finish my little story in my own indirect way. There was a record shop that had thousands of bizarre records here in Osaka for moderate prices, and I always thought it was strange that it was an open door record shop. It was like a big closet with no door on it, and in Osaka's searing heat, you would think the records would get annihilated in there, which is true, a lot of them did. But I managed to liberate quite a few prog and psychedelic records from the place before it closed. It closed and became a discount travel ticket shop or something. It was appalling. I was really sad. It was just like, oh, another one bites the dust. So lost that record shop. Anyway, Breakfast. Now this is coming from Germany in the 70s. Really weird because it's a highly produced. Actually, it's produced by Connie Plank, one of the famous or infamous producers of underground German rock. And as soon as I see his name, I always have faith. So anyway, it's a country rock psychedelic album with harmonies, which most of these German bands sound a bit like Hawkwind. Or you get the stuff like Can, where it's experimental, or Faust, where it's even more experimental. I'm not too nuts about Faust, but you Faust fans can flame me about that later. I like Can though. I bumped into Damo Suzuki, which is another post entirely. Nice guy. On to, I believe, where are we in the world now? This is uh, Danish, Danish psychedelic record, Days, it's a little bit like Procol Harum. It's quite cool. It's got a really nice cover. Um, yeah, Spectator Records, which Spectator Records is famous for three or four of the best Danish, or rarest anyway, Danish hard blues records, which are really cool, kind of in the vein of Blue Cheer, like Moses, the Blues Addicts, Terji, is that how you say it? Terji, Jesper, and Joachim. I'm sure I said that wrong, but that's a really cool record. They do a Beatles cover that's really hard, and I like those hard Beatles covers. Um, yeah, this one's more like a Procol Harum thing with a little bit of jangly guitars and stuff. Some nice philosophical lyrics in English. I like Days. Days was good. It's not as hard as Moses or those other Spectator Records issues. So there's a Spectator label. Ta-da. And this is most certainly a reissue of some sort. It's not the Shadox ones that are worth $1 zillion after all 10 of them sell out, but it's something else. I really don't know. If anybody knows where these fake Spectator records are coming from in Japan, I'd really like to know. I have the Moses one too. Um, Austin Landing. Here we go. This thing freaked me out. I saw it on the shelf and thought, what on earth could this be? Well, I thought it would be some sort of weird garage band, but it's actually a lot of weird garage bands. It's French, well-known records. How well-known could these bands be? But it's a French reissue of, well, it's a compilation of a bunch of Texas acid 45s from the 60s, acid rock, with Roy Head and the Chains, Reasons Why, Bubble Puppy, check them out, they're awesome. Bubble Puppy and what was their single? oh dear, I only remember a couple of songs by them. Hurry Sundown is the single that's here. It's a different mix. There's a 72 13th Floor Elevator song called Maxine where Rocky Erickson is just screaming his lungs out. And I was really excited the song by the Stereo Shoestring, On the Road South, that was covered by a Canadian band called Eric's Trip. If my accent hasn't given it away by now, I'm an Eric's Trip fan. Canadian band. Stereo Shoestring, On the Road South is amazingly aggressive for the 60s. The drummer is just unbelievable on that track. I remember talking with the Eric's Trip guys, actually, Mark and Rick, and they said they didn't know what that guy was on. You know, like for a drummer to play that aggressive, there's got to be, I mean, it's got to be something in your system, or he was just a wild man. I don't know, one of the two. But lots of good songs on this record. A catchy song by Five by Five called Apple Cider, which is a really awesome song, catchy tune about a girl who likes to get drunk all day on apple cider. Um, yeah. On to the Japanese stuff. Now this is a record, it's a split record by, I think, an American, Six Organs of Admittance, and Azul, which this is like a free folk psychedelic thing. Yeah, it has an obi on it, which is a sash, some sort of, they're called that in reference to a kimono sash, I think. But you find these on a lot of Japanese records. If you find these on 70s records in mint condition, the value will increase, and they are quite beautiful to the eye. You often get a Japanese description of what's going on with the music. This says free folk on it. It's a kind of free folk psychedelic thing. Usually I don't buy a lot of music the from the 2000s. This is 2009 on PSF Records, Psychedelic Speed Freaks, a label with a lot of amazing Japanese bands like White Heaven is on there, and I think Fushitsusha has something to do. Maybe, I don't know. I hope Hino Keiji doesn't like get mad at me or something if I'm wrong. But I think that I remember Mainliner, maybe? Mainliner was really cool. I don't have my PSF records with me here in Osaka. They're back in Canada, so I don't know. I'd have to dig into some shelves to find those. Only a couple left here. This one I technically didn't actually get in Golden Week. It was a week after I went on a karaoke session, and I found this beforehand. This is a Spanish psychedelic folk album. Haizea? I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. But it's from the Basque region of Spain, which is supposed to have a really strong culture and an interesting history. I looked it up a little bit. It was interesting. The other Hazer record, I don't know how to say it. I'm nervous about that. The other Hazer record I had a fold out with a bunch of medieval wood cuttings depicting Satan and burning fire and all this really weird stuff. It was haunting, but this is actually very tuneful, melodic, psychedelic folk. I don't know, this isn't really, it's kind of pointless to show the drawing because it's getting a lot of glare. But there's a nice drawing in there of the band members. What else do we have here? We are getting ridiculously long in time. Oh, back to Canada. Ta-da! Here's the original I bought. I'm pretty excited about this, actually. It was really nice to listen to. All about Steppenwolf. So here's Steppenwolf, the Canadian garage psych pop band. And this features Magic Carpet Ride and Born to Be Wild and some other songs that I really liked. Suki Suki, the amazingly titled Tighten Up Your Wig, which is a pretty cool song. Yeah, Lost and Found by Trial and Error. It's got the great Japanese back cover, so you get all this Japanese print. Probably another write-up about what their favorite foods are, like Caravan. But this Steppenwolf record's really cool, and especially cool about it is it comes in an envelope sleeve, which is part of its rarity, allegedly. So the shop staff told me. So it comes in an envelope, and you've got this great picture sleeve with all these different artists. Clayton's Beethoven Symphony, Samson, Francois Samson, I don't know. There's a lot of odd stuff on here. Ventures, Buck Owens and his Buckaroos in Japan. I would love to listen to that. That sounds fun. And it comes on this great, if you can see it in the light, great red vinyl. Stateside Records. It just looks classy, and it plays really good. It's in pretty nice condition for a 60s original. So the Steppenwolf, it's got some really nice acidy lead guitar. So all good fun. I enjoyed them a lot, and I will continue to do so. But yeah, record shops in Japan are pretty interesting. I mean, you could find a lot of weird stuff here. You can find a lot of cover art you've never seen before. There were a lot of bands that in the 70s made bizarre albums that had limited circulation. They wind up here, sometimes in compromised condition, but at least you can pull it out of the ridiculous sleeve and spin it a